public hearing is now called to order at 6 o'clock. This hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, an act relative to the protection of the wetlands and as mostly recently amended. Notice of the time and place of this hearing was originally published in the Fairhaven Neighborhood News on September 5th, 2024. It was also posted in the town clerk's office. This meeting is being audio and videotaped. Persons wishing to be heard will be called in the following order. Okay. Notice is hereby given that the Acushnet Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 29th, 2025, beginning at 6 p.m. in the Town Hall Meeting Room located at 122 Main Street, Acushnet, Massachusetts. This meeting will also be held via Zoom. Do you have to read that?
Meeting number? I don't think
Well, the meeting ID is 813-8259-4436. The passcode is 217005. If you'd like to call in, dial 1-646-558-8656, and the dial-in password is 217005. Okay, reorganize. Commission to vote on chairman and vice chairman. Review of matters presented. Votes may be taken. So, not now.
I'd like to make a motion. I'll motion that the new chairman be Jim Souza.
I'll second that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
No. Okay.
All right.
I didn't. Congratulations.
So it's going to be roll call, Heidi.
Okay.
Roll call.
Roll call, you can say your name and yes.
Nelson Viveros, yes.
Rebecca Sorica, yes.
James Souza, yes.
Heidi Pelletier, yes.
Christian D'Souza, yes.
Douglas Thomas, yes.
Eric DeBarros, nay.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that vice chair be Christian D'Souza.
And I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Roll call vote.
Nelson Viveros, yes.
Rebecca Sorica, yes.
James Souza, yes.
Heidi Pelletier, yes.
Christian D'Souza, yes.
Douglas Thomas, yes.
Eric DeBarros, no?
With that being said,
Yeah, okay.
with that being said, at that point, I am the chair and Christian D'Souza is vice chair.
Congratulations, guys.
Okay.
No congratulations to me?
I just think
All
Okay.
right. So do you take over?
You got it.
Just to, but I want to address this first, if I may. So this is the small pond, the one across the street from Tom Davis. So I recently had a gentleman from Airview, Acushnet, fly it with a drone. Especially since we got some ice on the ponds now. So what that did was it enabled us to be able to see where these areas of biomass are starting to congregate. So this general view of the map, this is Lake Street here. This is Main Street, and down here would be Middle Road. This is the smaller pond. This is the south pond. This is the north pond, which is the larger pond that has the boat ramp and the dock. So these little areas that you see highlighted in orange are the biomass areas that are starting to collect. Eventually, if we let this pond go, it's going to be just as bad as Tom Davis. This little one that you can see from the street, this little area of biomass, 18 months ago that wasn't there. Now that area of biomass is probably the size of this area here that's taken up by this room. So the areas that he had flown, he had taken some photographs with the aerial drone. So again, here's Lake Street. This is Tom Davis Pond, and this is the small pond. And you can see this area, and this area that's over by the street, those tan-colored areas are the biomass areas. Up until 18 months ago, that one didn't exist. That one didn't exist. And that one didn't exist. So, as we let these ponds go, they're going to progressively get worse, and they're going to get exponentially worse year after year. So I'd spoken to Jeff Corso over C&D Underwater, and they have a machine that actually, it's almost like a mini excavator that goes on a barge, from what I understand, from what he told me, that we could actually get out on the pond and actually do some removal of some of these. And all that these really are is, as the weeds die, some of them float up to the surface, and the winds tend to blow them around, like, any other, when you go to the beach and you see seaweed and it gets blown around, it gets, blown into the shore. Well, in these ponds, they'll get blown around to various different areas of the ponds, and something as simple as a lily pad will just start collecting this stuff. And as it gets blown into this area more, it starts congregating more. And then it dies and settles to the bottom, and then more of it just keeps kind of puddling or pooling in that particular area. And it just keeps compounding until you get it to a point where it's actually visible at the water surface. Now, I know this pond fairly well because I do fish it a lot. This area here, you're looking at, I would say about 4 feet of water. So this is 4 feet of biomass that has just over time just filled in. This area here is probably a little bit less. It's probably more like 3 feet deep. And this area here is about 3 feet, or about 2.5 feet deep. And then over in this corner is the one that's visible from the street, but you can't see it. The photograph didn't show it as well. So here's a little bit better of a close-up view of the two that were down on the northernmost part of, the northernmost part of the pond. So it'll give you a better idea of what you're looking at. Granted, this is all ice, so it enabled us to be able to see this a little bit more clearly. And then I also have a photograph of the one that you can see from the street. So this is Tom Davis Pond in the background. This is Lake Street. This would be the south pond over here. And over tucked in this corner is that area of biomass. And again, all that is just these weeds. They just congregate in this area. They get moved around from the winds, and they just start piling up, and they die, and they keep piling up. Eventually, like I said, if we don't do anything, it's going to end up looking like Tom Davis. It's going to end up turning into a wetland. And that's what we're trying to avoid. The other two ponds, the north pond and the south pond, you don't see that as much. You don't see the biomass areas as much because the depth of the water there is a little bit greater. So over time, you may see some areas like this, but it's going to take a lot longer because that pond, those two ponds are a lot, quite a bit deeper than this pond. This particular area here off the street is probably 3.5 feet of water, maybe. So again, that's a pretty sizable area. I'm sure some of you travel up and down that street. It probably caught your eye. Just at the end of the summer, there was a whole bunch of ducks and geese that just kind of nestle there and just bask in the sun. But that's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we're trying to treat. I don't, Jeff, are you currently listening in?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm here.
So Jeff Corso is here from C&D Underwater. He's the contractor that the town has hired to do the weed removal using an eco-harvester. I know there were a lot of questions from the last meeting that I did not have answers to because I don't have the experience that Jeff has in this particular field. So if there's any of those questions that you would like to raise, Jeff is more than happy to answer them.
Well, first and foremost, if I may,
Go ahead.
Chairman, one question I had was, approximately what would be the daily volume of material that would be removed during the process?
So that's very difficult to say. I would estimate I would be probably 50 to 80 yards a day. It's going to depend on how fast the stuff comes up, how fast I can get the boat back to the shore. The boat moves extremely slow. It does about 3 miles an hour. And it'll hold roughly 2,500 pounds of weeds, so let's call it a ton of weeds, literally a ton of weeds. Once it's full, it moves even slower. Having an offload site as close as possible as this is, the North Pond, is incredibly helpful. But again, as you start pulling, what you're going to see is more and more come up. So we'll drive over an area, it'll look great, we'll turn around 10 minutes later, and now you'll see all the brown dead stuff come up where we just went over. So I would guess anywhere from 50 to 80 yards a day.
So the north pond, this pond right here, we don't have the boat ramp to unload, correct?
The small pond?
Yep.
I think, so this pond is much shallower.
Yeah.
There used to be a gravel ramp
Yeah.
that DPW used to manage and take care of, and
West end.
would put some new gravel down every so often.
On the west end, yeah.
Yeah, I think that if you're able to get like a john boat in there, or some kind of a flat skiff or something, that's manageable.
Okay.
It's not it's not as deep as the north or south pond, where the one pond that does have the boat ramp, you can actually get deeper hull boats like bass boats and boats like that. But I think we could be able to get something in the smaller pond and be able to do the application there.
Good.
Excuse me, Jeff? Chairman?
Go right ahead.
Yes.
Do you proceed with, since we're on this subject, do you proceed any problems getting your machinery into any one of these ponds? If he's saying already about a small machine, I know yours is a little bit larger. I'm just concerned on how are we gonna get it in there without having to do any excavation?
So, do I have concerns? Yes, I have concerns at every single job I do. But the Eco Harvester is about 3,600 pounds. It's 8 feet 3 inches wide, about 22 feet long. Comes in on a regular pontoon boat trailer. That I don't perceive any issues in the north or the south pond. I may get stuck. I'm very used to it. We comes in and we pull it with a regular 2,500 heavy duty Chevy pickup trucks are what we have. So I may get stuck. If that's the case, I call a tow truck and they pull me out. That happens quite often. I don't perceive your ramps actually look pretty good compared to some of the other ones. I mean, we've done this off of beachfronts, we've done it off of the backyards, we've done it in all kinds of crazy places. The other small pond, that would be a much bigger machine. That's an excavator that would come in. It's a floating excavator, paddle wheel driven again, nothing off gases below the water line. That boat's 11,000 pounds. It comes in on a tractor trailer. As long as I can get the back of the tractor trailer, the trailer end under the water, I can claw the machine off itself. I can pull it off by itself. So that one might be a bit of an issue, but again, I don't know until I try. That's my biggest concern. As far as the excavation, I don't think there would have to be any excavation to get anything in.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
now, I was just curious about the dewatering process and then removal. How would that pan out? How would that pan out, Jeff?
So for the weeds in the north and the south, when they come off the Eco Harvester, they get loaded into a dump trailer, and that dump trailer comes up and goes to a reserve area. The best way to do it is, all the biologists and all the people we've worked with recommend at least 50 feet from the water's edge with what they call an upland review area. an area of grass, natural vegetation. So any rain that comes in is not going to wash everything back into the lake. We usually recommend 100 feet. We like to double it just to be on the safe side. And once it gets dumped into piles, the piles look enormous, and 2-3 days later they're half that size, and then another week after that they're even less that size once they dewater. They had mentioned about having the town maybe come in and unloading those later on, or if we can get them far enough into the woods that it wouldn't even be an issue. You wouldn't even have to worry about them. We can truck them off site. We usually will truck them to a recycling center up there. I don't have it in front of me who we use up there, but I don't remember the name of the place. I apologize, but there is somewhere that's maybe 20 minutes away. The downside to that is the boat's going to be moving so fast that the boat will end up waiting for the trailer to come back. As far as I'm going to be offloading, every 30 minutes. So if I've got to take 30 minutes to travel with a trailer, turn around, I'm already an hour out, and now the boat's waiting. Time is money. So we like to keep them in the area, keep everything moving as fluidly as possible. As far as the dewatering, this stuff really composts down to nothing. It turns tiny by the time it's done. And as it comes through the pinch rollers on the boat is actually squeezing probably 60% of the water out of them. So they're already not dry, but there's a lot less water in them at that point.
All right, that being said, then, how long do you suggest the material sit and dewater on the pond's edge, or the
100 feet back.
No,
At least 100 feet from the water's edge.
Now, how long do you suggest that the material sit there before being removed? For the dewatering, how long do you suggest that it dewaters prior to removal? I'm just curious.
A week.
Oh, yeah, that would be
About a
the,
week.
yeah, sure.
I mean,
So Scott, what is the
That would be
time,
at the most.
what is the timeline for the project right now?
We're shooting for August.
But,
7 days.
the length of the,
So we're hoping to have Jeff
yeah,
here.
I know it's not,
At least a week, but that's gonna be based on his schedule,
Yeah.
which we have not ironed out yet.
right, so. if
That's
he-
something that we have to discuss.
A week being 5 days? Is that what we're saying?
I would,
A
well,
5-day week? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
so at
yeah.
50
Unless you leave it there for 5
50
days
to
and then
80.
DPW comes and trucks it off site.
50, well, that's what I'm curious,
Brings it to the
as
town.
far as how that process should work in terms of allowing,
Yeah,
as much dewatering as possible prior to maybe
Yeah, yeah.
hauling some of that out.
because instead of bringing it to a recycling yard like Jeff had mentioned, Dan Menard had mentioned that we could stockpile it at the town yard, which is only 2
No,
minutes,
that's not-
2 minutes
not a-
away from
Not a
the
big,
pond.
no, it's not a heavy lift.
But if we let it sit there for 5 days,
Yeah.
after 5 days, it's
Right,
gonna be
it's a
small.
fraction,
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting
Yeah,
at.
yeah.
It'll only be a
Well, hold on.
fraction,
We didn't,
right?
we didn't ask him if it was gonna be, if that's what he thinks dry.
Well, it'd be,
Well, no, that-
in
all
5
of it
days,
would be
Jeff,
different.
right?
Right.
It should be dry enough to take and
Yeah.
truck this out.
I'm just saying the load size. Is that 50 to
Absolutely.
80 yards dry or 50 to 80 yards wet?
No, that's wet.
Wet, it's 50 to 80 yards wet.
Right, and what is the percentage of,
Shrinkage.
right, basically, yeah,
Yeah.
that it'll shrink in the 5-day span?
It's gonna drop down 50%
Yeah.
easily.
Huh?
So,
That's
I
a
mean,
lot less.
if let's say we're
A
talking,
lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, if we're
to haul
talking-
at that point.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Jeff, should there, or have we taken a look at, should there be some type of a barrier implemented, straw wattle,
Yeah.
hay bales, something from the runoff going back into the bodies of the water?
that's up to the commission. We have done it where you're just taking bays of bales of hay and lined around it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We have done that before.
That'll work.
That's in places where we we've done it so I'll give you an example. We do the reservoirs for the city of Atlanta, Georgia. We go from Maine to Atlanta, Georgia. We do all the reservoirs for Atlanta. And where we drop the weeds there is a paved pad almost. And that pad pitches right back down towards the reservoir. So they line the edge of that with bales of hay. Here, again, the natural vegetative buffer, that barrier, that upland review area, it may not be necessary depending on where you guys earmark for us to dump.
So I guess then, my question is, you know the lay of the land, you're the expert, this is what you do. You know, whether you would recommend a straw wattle or hay bales, you know, we would obviously take that recommendation into consideration, because we don't want to reintroduce what we're taking back out, as it's been introduced back into the water, as we know from boats, boat propellers, etc. So we're, you know, entrusting you with your expertise, you know, to lay eyes on this and come back and say, hey guys, I think we should lay straw wattles around this to capture anything that could potentially run back off into the body of water, is how I would like to lead that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, okay, we can look at that. If we're going to earmark the area in that gravel, then I would definitely recommend putting the bales of hay in, or even what is it called?
Wattles.
A sediment barrier. Yeah, just something. But yeah, the bales of hay would work best. But just a point of knowledge, where the majority of this stuff comes from is, believe it or not, the geese.
Right.
Geese are bringing this in.
Right.
That's where the majority of it comes from. So that's just an interesting point.
Hey Jeff, I live on 19 Lake Street and I own like 600 feet from that back corner around. It's kind of this meadow swamp area. And I don't know if I can be any help, or if you want to put, I don't know if you can fill something in there because it's being all overgrown and just, I don't know if you want to, I don't know if you've walked back there or not, but
I have not walked back there.
Yeah, you should take a walk over
I'm
there.
looking at where you are on the map.
There's a little island, there's, no, there's
Further,
yeah.
in that meadow area.
Yeah, it's a little inlet that brings you in, and then there's an island, and then my land, I don't know if you can see it. It's a pretty big amount, it goes all around in the
You're talking
corner.
about on the north pond?
In the little east pond,
It's on the north pond?
in the little,
Oh, okay.
the small one. But
The
I'm,
little pond.
is
Yeah,
it south?
okay.
Is that south?
No, that's north.
North, okay. That north corner,
East.
east,
I understand.
yeah, it's,
You're almost
Northeast.
across from Crandon Drive?
yes.
It's the east end.
Yeah, northeast. It's the northeast pond.
It used to be land years and years ago, but now it's not. We skate down there and stuff, kayak, but, I don't know.
Yeah.
If, it's just a thought
Okay.
that if there's something that
Mhm.
I could help, and if you wanted to.
No, I
fit in
appreciate that.
and
That may
have
come
more
into play
land.
once we, yeah, once we get up there and take
Yeah,
a look,
and even,
that
you
might
know,
work
if
out.
you need
Yeah,
anything,
we
I
can
might have to
definitely-
help.
I mean, if I'm correct by saying, Jeff, if you don't mind, if I'm correct by saying, it's gonna be a feeler gauge out there when we first head out, right? So whatever you're telling is an
Absolutely.
assumption, right? So we're not gonna really know how this goes until you first get out there. And you being the professional that we are hiring, we are gonna look at a lot of your expertise. The other thing is I know when you first dump, I am a retired gentleman, so when you do your first dump, I'm gonna make sure I'm on site. I'm hopefully maybe even Mark or maybe another commission member can be there. Scott's gonna wanna be there. So we're gonna have a lot of eyes on this. And I think if we all just stay as a group and we concentrate this together, and we'll make the right decisions then, we'll have hay bales on site. If we think we gotta have you guys put them out, we'll put them out, or, make sure you have the hay bales. And I think this can go really well as long as we all just work as a group and make sure that everything is done
Absolutely.
professional, And like I said, we are gonna look at you, just so you know, I have a background of, 35 years of dredging and doing a lot of the same kind of work. And so I think if we just go there out and use your professionalism and go out there as a group and just watch as the steps go on, especially the first day, right? And once you get into it, you're gonna say, hey, Jim, or whoever you're talking to, and you're gonna be able to say, hey, this is what we're thinking. It's probably gonna be closer to the 80 yards a day since we did so good the first day. And it's gonna give us a lot more view on it. Because right now everyone's sitting here and we're assuming, right? We're asking questions that what if. I think the communication is gonna be the biggest part of this, working as a team. Commission, the Lake Street Commission,
Absolutely.
and you.
Absolutely. That's usually how we do it. We take a lot of input from commissions and from homeowners associations. But there's also times that they'll want us to focus on certain areas and kind of forget other areas. So again, we're working for you guys, and the outcome is to improve the water quality and make this a useful area. That's our goal. So, and if however you guys want it to go, we can make it work. We have the equipment to do it and the people to do it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
All right, so I have the luxury of knowing Chance firsthand. If you guys would be interested on hearing what he had to say about the whole project. Heidi, I'm a little slow on reading. Would you mind reading this out to me? This is a message from Chance Parks from today.
Okay. Eric, as vocalized to both of you and Scott Daggett, mechanical removal of non-native aquatic vegetation is not a bad first step to pond restoration, but I believe two primary follow-up activities should occur as part of this initiative. One, begin a pond water sampling program, ideally monthly during the warm season, April to October, to understand what is happening thermally and chemically through the water column. To leverage the neighborhood buzz around this weed harvesting to do a watershed/neighborhood education using a butters list on lawn care, septic system maintenance, dog waste cleanup, etc. via mass mailing, social media, and lakeside events. Post. The weed harvesting won't be a perfect one-time fix, but as long as it complies with the time of year restrictions from natural heritage, it won't do any harm. I recommend special conditions. One, requiring quarterly update memos to be sent to your commission on project updates. Two, a season end report outlining the harvest metric loads or pounds of weeds removed. And three, follow-up inspections on where weeds are being disposed of. Don't let that material contaminate other water bodies. Good luck.
Thank you. I just figured that we might wanna, because he
Kind
was,
of really do.
he was vocalized with me personally that he would like to be, also part of this and be involved with this. Unfortunately, he had prior arrangements and he couldn't make it to this meeting, so he told me he would text me this to share with you guys. So I figured I'd share it with all of you.
Have you talked to Chance, Scott?
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday I was on a site meeting that's unrelated to this, through my job as a civil engineer. So after I was done with that particular site meeting, I took an extra 20 minutes or so to get him up to speed. Iron out a lot of things, because I know I've been very critical of the city of New Bedford. There's been no secret about that at all. So yeah, he and I cleared up a lot of things. And he's, all for it. He thinks what we're doing is a great thing. And, he's offered to, give as much advice or as much guidance as we need. And that's very appreciative.
Only concern of mine is that last meeting you were stating that you were having trouble getting hold of the party, and the party's been getting a hold and very responsive the whole time.
Well, no, so Chance has been very responsive. So whenever I've reached out to Chance, it's usually, less than a day turnaround. What I was referring to was a lot of the inquiries that I was making to Jamie Pont himself. He is pretty much leaving it to everyone else to manage. Because there were some things, there was some information that I needed.
Chance is the agent, though, right?
Well, Chance is a conservation agent, but there were other things that I needed to know about
I'm not really.
who owned the ponds, when the ponds were owned, or, when the ponds were transferred from whoever privately transferred them to the city of New Bedford. I was trying to find as much information because to go into this project half blind, it's not going to be as effective. So I wanted to have all my bases covered, especially when it came to drafting up the notice of intent. The notice of intent was extremely complicated. As a civil engineer, I've done a few notice of intents. I have never seen one this complicated. None of my colleagues where I work have ever seen one this complicated. So it was going in blind and hoping that I got all my ducks in a row, because I know how this process works. I know that it can be an ongoing process if you don't cross all your T's and dot all your I's. And that's why I was trying to get as much information as I could regarding those ponds, relating to ownership, any information about conservation. So you're partially right. Chance has been very upfront, and his response time has been very good. But everyone else at DPI, crickets. So
It just kind of goes against what you had originally told me. I took it that way. Maybe I saw it wrong,
yeah.
but he also answered a lot of the questions that we all had permitted in previous, and I was just curious on reason being, because me personally, I'm a straightforward type of guy. It was just raised suspicion, that's all.
yeah, so there's no suspicion there. We can always go back and look and see what was said. Thankfully, these are all recorded, so
Because
my words are my words.
He also recommended that he would like to see the water samples and all that other stuff that we had recently talked about in other meetings. It was just a little gray area that I don't want to be holding back, and I just want to let it be known that.
All right, well, we read it out.
Yeah.
Mark, you got a question?
I've got a couple, I actually have a couple questions for Jeff, but then to speak to some of these issues, water quality. I've spent a bunch of time talking with Mass DEP and some other things relevant to this discussion that we've shared before. Hi, Jeff, how are you? This is Mark Minton. I'm the conservation agent.
Good work.
Hey, so I think the commission members touched on a number of the questions I had. Scott and I have had several conversations. I know I've shared, taking a look at the Mass DEP aquatic vegetation management policy. There's a whole bunch of almost relevant conditions for the permit, which I think is beyond why you're here tonight, but I've shared those with the commission. We'll come back to those, time of year, all that stuff. I guess I had a couple questions. One was about refueling. Is that an issue? So that was one, and I'll let you answer that one. And then I had another one about access points to the pond.
So refueling, the boat runs for probably about 8 hours on a tank of fuel with 8 gallons of gas. We use specialized, so let me back up. My real job, this turned out to be my real job at this point in my life, but I'm a fireman in the city of Bridgeport. I'm a captain. I went to college for engineering with a background in public administration with a concentration in OSHA contamination and NIOSH. So that gives you an idea of my background. What we use are containers that have been recognized as good practice by the DEP in Connecticut, the DEC in New York, on a pond in Massachusetts. Can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but they came out and looked at it. They recognize it as good practice. And what we also do is they're essentially hazmat pads. They're 4x4 pads that we'll put at the bottom of the boat that if there is any spillage, it would quickly absorb it. But the cans we use are predominantly, they're about $160 for each can. They're just regular 5-gallon cans with a special nozzle on them that minimize any spillage. But we do refuel on the water.
Okay, and yeah, thanks. I'm not surprised that you have all those measures already thought out. I just wanted to bring that up as it was something that I thought about. I guess one of the other questions I had, and it came up earlier, in terms of access to the pond, I know there's a boat ramp. The ponds are pretty large. You're doing about 3 knots or 3 miles an hour.
3 miles an hour,
Yeah, so trying to identify access points, because I don't know around the pond, other than the boat ramp, where it's going to be easy, readily accessible to, if you want to deploy the eco harvester there. And so I guess from the wetlands ecology side, to the maximum extent that we can minimize any disturbance if you're not using a boat ramp or whatever to get into the into the water. Obviously, I'm sure that's your intent as well, but just to to minimize the disturbance and because as you know, I'm sure you start disturbing areas. We should monitor them. Maybe not you, but as a condition to. I mean, they set up conditions for other invasives to move in, whether it's purple loose strife or whatever. So or Phragmites, but I don't know if that's so much a question, but a follow-up to an earlier question and that you kind of already addressed, but I just wanted to put that out there as well, so.
Anyone from the audience?
Thank you.
Nothing out there? All right. All right,
Can I just say something?
go right ahead.
I was skating the other, on the lake with my daughter this weekend.
We saw the pictures.
Oh, thanks. And there's looks like a beaver dam out in the back corner. What happens to the beaver?
Which pond is that?
East Lake.
The north pond right there.
So, I have seen the beaver out there. It was a year and a half ago, maybe close to 2 years ago. It got hit by a car, and it was on the shoreline.
Gosh.
I took photos of it, sent it up to Mass
Okay.
Wildlife to verify that it was a beaver, because I was not about to touch it and turn it over and take close-up photos. I took, and they identified it as a beaver. So I don't know if there's a pair
I
of
wasn't
them.
sure if it was
I don't know if
active or
there's-
not, but it was
yeah.
definitely cool.
Yeah, so I believe one of those areas that's the biomass areas is right up against where the beaver was starting to build its habitat. So when it was building its habitat, I happened to come across it when I was out there fishing, and it's a pretty good size area. And strangely enough, it had sloping sides, and it was made out of twigs and branches, and I was hitting it with an oar, and they build those things very well. And I don't know if that's something that we can touch. That'll be something that we'll have to address further down the road, because I know some of those little beaver huts are protected. Seeing how that beaver got hit, I don't know if he was the only one that was out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, there is a beaver habitat. There's a beaver habitat that's out there, but the beaver that was there
Probably, yeah.
is no longer there.
Did you ever talk to, that'd be under natural heritage too, wouldn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Because of the animals, yeah.
Well, we filed with Natural Heritage.
Oh, good, good.
And the only area that's
But did you mention to them that you found, that you knew, knowing that there was a beaver dam there, and if there was any precautions you should take?
No, but there is narrative in their literature that says that you have to take special precautions, you have to take special actions around those areas where the beavers are. Again, it was in that document that Mark had shared with me, that I think it was DEM, with their guidance for removal of invasives.
Yeah.
There was mention in there of not necessarily beaver dams, but beaver habitat, beaver huts. And they have certain guidelines when encountering such a thing, so. I'm sure Jeff has
Yeah,
come across
I was
that
gonna
many
say
times.
the
Yeah.
same thing. Jeff, have you had any experience with that kind of a issue on any of your projects?
Yeah, in Connecticut,
Sure.
we have a lake here in Connecticut. It's a large homeowners association, actually borders the Connecticut-New York line, and they have a huge beaver dam problem. We were able to go in, and with our excavator machine, we deconstructed ones that they said were not active anymore. That was all the DEP and the DEC in Connecticut and New York. So we have come across them where we've removed them, but that was only by them telling us to do it. So
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yeah.
So based on your recommendation, or I may reach out to Mass Wildlife and Natural Heritage and see what they recommend, whether they would want us to do a study over the spring and summer months to see if there is any beaver activity there and determine whether or not this is an active or an inactive beaver habitat, and whether they will allow us to remove it.
And just
Is there actual water flow from where that beaver dam is?
No, so that pond, I think that pond is spring fed, is that correct? Or, I know that there's a pipe that connects the south pond to that small pond. So I'm not 100% sure if there's like a small creek that flows into that small pond, or whether it's spring fed, but the beaver habitat itself, I think you can see part of it right here, this little horseshoe that's in between these two biomass areas. That beaver habitat is like, it's either right in this area or it happens to be that particular
Kind of see it.
biomass area.
So it might not be a biomass, it could be a beaver hut.
Yeah, that one's more than likely the beaver habitat.
Or the one next to it.
I don't think the one next to it is, because
No, it's not.
when I was out there this summer,
But
yeah,
then, we can't be sure until I guess we go through the proper
Right, exactly. Yep.
states like you just mentioned.
Well, he was saying spring and summer, see if it's active, right? So, I know, Mark, you got one more thing you wanna?
Yeah. So, carrying on with this discussion, I know the commission is aware, I know Scott's aware, and I'm sure Jeff as well, but the time of year restriction was recommended, was recommended from April 1st to June 15th, which is outside the window where you're proposing to work, but for river herring, because there's spawning river
Yeah.
herring up in there
Yep.
that are laying eggs attached to that, and there's eels up in there. So now we have beavers, and we can look into that. I wanted to just quickly go back to the water quality sampling. We talked about this before. That's obviously a major part of the eutrophication of the pond. It's basically input of nutrients. So I think the water quality monitoring is a huge piece of like a long-term project, but it seemed to me that the earlier proposal included reference to water quality monitoring plan, if I'm not correct, Scott, that DMF was looking for, and it just, to me, it seems beyond the scope of the plan. I tried to reach out to DEP, I reached out to DEP's water quality program, and they weren't really, they have a set program where they're rotating through, and at some point they come back through Southeast Mass. They actually said that Buzzards Bay Coalition, their water quality sampling is probably the best set of data we're going to have, and I don't know if we can reach out to them. I think that's a big piece of, addressing this as a long-term issue. Obviously, something needs to be done immediately about, just the problem at hand, but we have reached out, so it's not as if hasn't been touched on. And my recommendation was that we just, not that I don't believe in the water quality, because I actually think that's the root of all this issue.
Correct.
But I do believe that it's beyond the scope of what this project, and correct me if I'm wrong, trying to set up a, water quality in conjunction with what's going on. If we can do it, that's great, but I wouldn't want to see that hold the project up. So that would be my recommendation on that. And I did talk to DPW, and Scott, sounds like you did as well, Dan Menard. We talked a little bit, or he came over to Comcom and mentioned that, if he was willing to truck material off-site, and whether it was to the DPW, my apologies, yard or not, that he was, just, he'd be willing to do that if we needed that. At least that's, I don't think I think that, it's a couple things. I have one more question too, I'm sorry, can I, Jeff, and I don't know, I think you mentioned this as well. I know that there's areas on the ponds that are things like cattails and some other areas. I don't think it's universal, but a couple of areas that it would seem to me that if we could avoid those areas, it'd probably be, if we were choosing areas, that wouldn't be the first choice, in my opinion. It, has wildlife value. So I don't know how selective.
Just let me know.
I'm assuming that they're not moving as fast as the boat, so you can avoid it. But sorry, that's attempted humor there. Okay. All right.
So is there anyone else?
We can avoid those areas.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
So with that being said, I would love to make a motion and go ahead with an NOI. The only thing I have issue is the order of conditions. I think we're gonna have to get our heads together and really come up with a good order of conditions. I mean, we have hay bales now we're saying we should use. We don't know how this is gonna work. I don't know if we wanna take a little time here and try to make sure we get the order of conditions right. I just don't wanna ramble off some stuff or have anyone else ramble it off, and then when it comes to the end or the time to do it, we didn't add enough or we added too much.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that we should really, as a commission, really think about, talk about on our end, and say, okay, this is what we want, right? So I know there's some order conditions that Chase sent over that he thinks should be on there. We've all mentioned a few that should be on there, but I think we should make sure we get it all down and written down, exactly what we're all looking for, before we say, okay, yeah, we do want to go with the NOI, but these are the order conditions. Right now, I don't think at this time, sitting here at this tables tonight, we have the order conditions that we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I might be wrong by saying that, but I just don't feel like there's too much. I mean, we got fueling areas, we got hay bales, we got dumping, so I think we should really think about what our order conditions that we're looking for on the NOI.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you're gonna have a problem getting one, because we all in for the project. We all are, right? So we just wanna make sure that we cover our butts on everything. So with that being said, I'd like to put a motion to continue. Can I put a motion on that?
No.
No. I'd like to entertain a motion.
But let me just have you back up 1 minute. Can
Go
you
ahead.
read that statement out that Rebecca and Nelson can't?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just so we have that correct.
Okay.
And the audience will understand and
Yep.
the
Lake
middle
Street,
rule.
2 members have been newly appointed tonight, but due to the Mullen Rule, Rebecca and Nelson will be unable to vote due to missing more than 1 meeting for the Lake Street project. Now I can,
Can I
go
make
right
one
ahead,
more
Matt.
comment? So, Scott and I, again, have spoken a few times, and I have a draft or list of orders of conditions. It's not comprehensive. I think there's a couple other things, so I agree that, sitting down and making sure everything is covered, similar to what Chance was proposing. the DEP policy on aquatic vegetation removal has a number of them in there that I basically just cribbed. That I didn't take all of them, but some of the relevant ones. We have the refueling, I don't think is in there, but I'm happy to, anyhow, I do think collectively we could come up with a,
You can't
I mean, I still have to read
about the
through.
project with it
I
warm.
still have to read.
There's
through
no way
this
we can sit
cover.
down. All of
if
us
we,
can
you
sit
wanna
down.
find,
Unless
if
we
you
do
ever
it
have
in a
time
meeting.
and you
We'll
wanna
do it
sit
in a
down, I'm
meeting.
happy
We'll
to come
have
to wherever
Mark
you
draw
are.
something. I can go
And I'll
sit with
just send
Mark.
what I
Well, we
had
can't
sent
all,
previously.
I'm saying.
Correct,
It's not
correct.
comprehensive.
I
but it's
realize
getting
that,
there.
Eric. I
It's
do.
just
I
stuff
didn't
out
mean
of
that way, but
All right,
we
yeah.
will all talk to, get it
Yeah.
situated, but not through a quorum,
Yeah,
correct?
we can't talk.
I know.
All right.
I know exactly what
Because
you're
the way you
saying.
just said it, I'm
Yeah,
like,
no, I realize that.
We can't,
So I would like to entertain a motion that we continue this until we get a better order of conditions, something more listed out. Mark said he does have some that are listed. I think we should really think about more that we want, and go from there. Do I
so,
have a motion?
So you want me to do time and date certain?
So
Plug that in.
when are you thinking that we should be, want to do 2 meetings from now?
Yeah, I mean, however much time it's gonna take for you.
Because I know
I'll-
you're not doing this till August, we want to get it all situated before then.
Right.
So if we go with 2 meetings, not this one, the next one, the one after,
March?
and by then we should have something lined up with an order of condition?
but
March
the whole
12th
problem
or
is we have to
April
put the order of conditions, we have to talk about this on
Right.
the
Want-
air.
wanna
We
come back
can't do it
with a-
separate.
Come back with a draft?
We can
So,
come back with a draft in the
I
next
guess-
meeting.
Yeah, but he has to write it up personally.
Right, I can sit with him, or
Okay.
you can go into the office, or
Yes.
one person can go into the office, and everyone can take a ride to the office if they want to look at the draft.
Right. And
Right,
Can I just
go ahead.
distribute a draft after I speak with Scott? I'd obviously I'm happy to go.
Yeah, you can send the email across.
Yeah, and just, if there's comments, I don't know if that violates.
You can't.
I don't think that violates.
You can't comment.
You can't
It's a
comment on
quorum.
that.
We can't comment, but he can send us the draft, correct?
We,
Well, you can review it in the
Right,
meeting.
we can get it in review and then discuss it
Here.
that's
no, we have
correct,
to
in the
review
meeting.
it, we have to review it, we have to get it and receive it, and everything has to be done. on
Again, we can review it and then discuss it in an open meeting. I don't.
Right,
think
if he
that's-
sends it, he
I don't
can,
believe that's a
Joanne,
violation.
does he have the right to email it to us, the draft? Or is that a violation? And I don't know, I'm
No,
asking.
I know, we're not
I
supposed to
email you all the
be.
time, it's just you cannot comment back.
Correct,
Right.
so we don't reply to
Right,
it,
that's all.
we bring it to the next
That's
meeting,
correct.
everyone will already read it,
Right.
and we'll bring it up again.
Okay.
How's that
It'll
sound,
be-
Scott?
Yep.
Right.
Perfectly fine.
So, 2 meetings from now, Joanne, what's the date?
So you got March 12th?
March 12th?
Sounds good, Mark.
So I'll make a motion to continue this to March 12th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You can't vote.
It's gotta be roll call, Jim.
Roll call?
Jim Souza, aye.
Heidi Pelletier, aye.
Christian D'Souza, aye.
Doug Thomas, aye.
Eric Barrow, aye.
So we'll see you on March 12th.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Jeff,
Jeff, thank you very much.
No
Thank you,
problem.
Jeff.
Any questions, feel free to
Appreciate your
reach out.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks again,
Anytime,
Jeff.
guys. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
You too, bye-bye.
Scott, do you want to look at your calendar in the next couple of weeks? I'm happy to come at your convenience, so, I know you're busy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm available anytime.
All right.
All right,
Wow, he gets all.
okay.
Goes down.
If something comes up, if it's during my work hours,
do a
and I'm
full-
like swamped with
double
work, then I'll
Just
just,
saying, that's all.
Where's your office?
Fairhaven.
Okay, oh, that's perfect, yeah. I'll find what I put together was
Not
just
like
out of
fly
that
that stuff
plan,
in.
mainly.
Yeah.
And the
Not
DNF
like you fly that
letter.
stuff in.
But
All right, guys,
I'm
we
happy to
got-
sit down and do
I'm
that.
sure whatever you guys are gonna come up with is reasonable.
We gotta.
If
Yep,
anything, then I'm
let's
gonna
keep
have a
moving.
Close it out.
proposition.
Okay, so now we got agent updates.
Let's see. I think, I'm trying to work on a couple, there's a couple of certificates of compliance that are going to be coming up, not next meeting, but maybe the following one, just, sorry, that's not, just a heads up. I did finally get an email back from the current owner contractors that are going to be doing the work on 251 Mendel. I believe it's 251. It was Borrego Solar. It was the old Girl Scout camp. I was concerned that there was some type of work might get going, but in the email, which I'll send out to everybody, it's basically say that they're not, their plan is not to start working until this coming November. So they've put things on hold for whatever reason. So just, that's an update. We got a letter, a call from Jamie Bissonette at Zenith about withdrawing the latest NOI for Deep Brook. And so this is a letter, I think we discussed it. We discussed it at the last meeting. I believe the commission was comfortable with the withdrawal, waiting on a official letter saying, so. That's what he just sent that late this afternoon, so. I think those are the main, this is important. So, and we discussed this last meeting, but, so the MACC, their environmental conference is coming up March 1st, Saturday, March 1st. We're trying to get people registered. I know Joanne has spoken with them, and I have as well. So I can send information to the new members if you, including it's a one-day event and there's a schedule of activities. So you can take a look and we can get you signed up for those. And that goes for the rest of the commission as well. And I don't know who has and hasn't actually said, this is what I want to take. I know Heidi, you've spoken with Joanne. I don't know if anybody else.
I've spoken with Joanne.
I haven't put mine together yet, but I still have to, but.
If you need the schedule again, it's on their webpage, but I'm happy to send it out to everybody again in the information.
To the new members, it's a really good learning course. It really is, you know. Joanne, which one did we take last year?
Did we do the fundamentals?
Yeah.
Mental and, what's the
I
other?
don't know.
It's
It was,
fun, it's the
I haven't gone for
fundamental.
years.
this
It's
year
the
was gonna be what
fundamental.
plants and
Is that right?
wetlands, woody
I
plants,
mean,
Yep.
I learned,
and
I just finished.
there's right into order of conditions, there's just how to run a meeting.
So there's a lot of things that it's really good. I mean, if your first one, I do recommend the fundamentals. It really kind of like get you in there and, but, you know, take a look at it, glance at it, see what you guys want to do.
It's March
They have
1st,
mandatory.
Saturday.
Yes,
stuff.
mandatory.
Yeah, I finished my fundamentals.
Yeah,
Did
she
you
already
go?
did
Yeah.
hers.
Okay.
He has
Yeah,
to do
and
his.
I'm subscribed to the
I
emails
believe.
also, so I get all the emails from
Yeah,
them.
we'll be adding you in now, we'll be replacing you with Ryan and Everett, they'll swap your names out, so you'll be members.
And there is a discount, if you, the town has like is it a membership? I don't know.
Yeah.
We get some discounted rate, so if there's other things.
But you won't pay for anything, going through
Yeah.
that. I think it's like $150 each member for Saturday.
I think it's 135, but I could be wrong. Oh, no, well, the debate continues.
But
Joanne's always right, so it's
Yeah,
probably
that's how paid through the
$150.
town.
So other business. Any other business that may properly come before the commission not reasonably anticipated when posting 48 hours prior to the meeting. Future business. The next meeting of the Conservation Commission will be on February 12th, 2025. Meeting is to be held at the town meeting room located at 122 Main Street, Acushnet, Mass. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Aye, James Souza.
I'm Heidi Pelletier.
Aye, Christian D'Souza.
Aye, Douglas Thomas.
I.